Before you scroll away, what if this moment wasn't random? What if right now the energy of wealth wasn't something you needed to chase, but something that's already wrapped itself around you? Stay with this message, Scorpio, because, by the end, you won't just hear words. You'll feel a truth your soul has been waiting to remember. Scorpio, if this message has found its way into your awareness, it's not a coincidence, it's a divine alignment. You didn't stumble upon this by accident. Your soul has been reaching out, sending quiet signals into the universe, and the universe has responded. There is a sacred rhythm beneath everything right now, and you, without even trying, have become part of it. You may not have realized it, but your inner world has been preparing you for this exact moment, not through effort, not through striving, but through stillness. And now, as you pause, just for a breath, just for this space, you are entering the current of something powerful, something ancient, something deeply yours. This isn't the kind of wealth that arrives through hustle or noise. It's not the version that demands you prove yourself, be louder, or rush ahead. No. This is a different kind of arrival. This is the wealth that forms in the quiet, the kind that recognizes the sacred value of stillness. You've been so conditioned to chase, to strive, to meet expectations. But deep down, you've always known that your power doesn't lie in how fast you move. It lies in how deeply you feel. And, right now, that depth is becoming your magnet. It's drawing in everything that truly belongs to you. There's a reason you've been feeling the need to slow down, to breathe deeper, to step away from the chaos. Your system is responding to a frequency that's rising, one that cannot be accessed in the noise. This is not about doing more. It's about allowing more to meet you. The field around you is adjusting itself, and it begins with one choice: to be still long enough for what's already aligned to recognize you. The stillness you've been cultivating isn't emptiness, it's space. And in that space, your true abundance begins to take form. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to chase it. You only have to remember that you are already inside it. What you've been waiting for isn't ahead of you, it's already circling you, waiting for you to become still enough to let it land. Scorpio, your power is magnetic when you're silent, precise, intentional. And now, the timing is exact. As you enter this moment of quiet awareness, something shifts, not outside, but inside. The world won't understand this kind of arrival, because it's not loud. It's subtle. It's deep. But you'll feel it in your bones. You'll know it in your breath. Let yourself receive the truth of this. You are not preparing for the next thing. You are already within it. The signal has reached you because your frequency is now strong enough to carry it. Welcome to the field of stillness, where real wealth begins, not with action, but with presence. You may not have called it a rhythm, Scorpio. You may have just thought of it as a quiet persistence, a way of moving through your days without much noise. But something deeper has been guiding you, something ancient, something wise. Beneath the surface of your routines and responsibilities, a pulse has been forming, steady and calm. And while the world around you has been spinning faster, demanding urgency and attention, you've been moving in a different way, slower, more intentionally. You've been listening, not to the loudest voice, but to the softest knowing inside you. That is your rhythm. And now, that rhythm is becoming a magnet. Without forcing, without pushing, it's beginning to draw in the kind of wealth that doesn't just visit, it stays. You see, true abundance isn't a reaction to effort, it's a response to alignment. And alignment doesn't come from chaos, it comes from coherence, from living in a way that honors your own internal timing. That's what you've been doing, even if you didn't realize it. Every time you chose quiet over noise, depth over speed, truth over performance, you were choosing wealth. Not the kind that screams on the surface, but the kind that forms foundations below. And now that foundation is beginning to rise. It may show up first in subtle ways. A sense of ease where there used to be tension. A decision that feels clear, when before it felt heavy. You'll feel it when your breath deepens without you trying. When your body moves with grace instead of urgency. This is not hesitation. This is mastery. You've always had access to this rhythm, Scorpio. It's the one you were born with. But life, distractions, expectations, they pull us off beat. They convince us that we must rush to be worthy, hustle to be seen. But now, your energy is remembering. And as it remembers, the world begins to move around you differently. Not because you've shouted louder, but because your frequency has settled deeper. And that depth, that's what real wealth listens for. Wealth isn't impressed by speed. It's drawn to consistency. And you, Scorpio, have been holding steady long enough that the field is responding. This isn't about timelines or outcomes, it's about presence. About how the way you hold yourself calm, clear, whole, is already enough. The wealth that's arriving doesn't need a finish line. It needs rhythm. It needs something to land on. And you, in your quiet commitment, have become the landing space. This is the power of your inner rhythm. It doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't explode. It anchors. And now everything that's meant for you isn't circling above anymore. It's beginning to settle. Not all at once. Not loudly. But with the quiet confidence of something that knows it has finally found home. Urgent that demands you prove yourself, be louder, or rush ahead. No, this is a different kind of arrival. This is the wealth that forms in the quiet, the kind that recognizes the sacred value of stillness. You've been so conditioned to chase, to strive, to meet expectations. But deep down you've always known that your power doesn't lie in how fast you move. It lies in how deeply you feel. And right now, that depth is becoming your magnet. It's drawing in everything that truly belongs to you. Scorpio, your mind is powerful, but your body has always been the real oracle. While thoughts may spin, question, and analyze, your body simply knows. It has been quietly receiving the signals of transformation long before your conscious mind could catch up. Every subtle shift in your breath, every instinctive pause, every quiet moment when your hands stopped moving, these were not coincidences. They were responses to a frequency that has been rising all around you. And now your body, more than anything else, is the space where wealth begins to land. This isn't about what you think you should do. It's about how your body is already doing it, sensing, tuning, receiving. You may have noticed how your posture changes when you feel aligned, how your shoulders soften, how your breathing evens out. You may have caught yourself lingering a little longer before speaking, moving slower, making fewer decisions but with more clarity. These are not signs of hesitation. They are signs of calibration. Your body has become a spiritual antenna, attuned not to noise but to truth. It doesn't respond to pressure, it responds to resonance, and right now it is vibrating in harmony with a kind of abundance that doesn't rush in and out. It roots, it stays, because your system has become a place where wealth can actually rest. You don't have to force alignment when your body already holds it. That sensation in your chest, the quiet hum, the unexplainable calm, is your confirmation. Your nervous system, once so used to bracing, is now beginning to relax into trust. The more you move with awareness, the more magnetic you become. The small rituals you've adopted, making your space sacred, drinking something warm with intention, pausing before opening your phone, these are not habits. They're sacred agreements with yourself. They say, I am safe enough to receive. I am grounded enough to allow. And that is exactly what abundance responds to, not effort, but embodiment. It's tempting to think we must understand everything before we allow it in. But Scorpio, you are one of the rare signs that feels truth before it can be named. Let your body lead now. Let it become the tuning fork for everything that's aligning. If something feels heavy, contractive, rushed, that is your system saying no. And if something feels open, anchored, steady, that is the field saying yes. Your body is reading the environment far more accurately than any plan or spreadsheet ever could. Trust it. Because in this moment, it's not the loud affirmations that are calling in wealth. It's the way your shoulders drop when you finally believe you're allowed to relax. It's the way your breath deepens when you stop apologizing for needing space. It's the stillness you hold not because you're uncertain, but because you're finally sure. Scorpio, your body remembers the rhythm of prosperity. Let it guide you home to what you were always meant to hold. Scorpio, when you're truly aligned, the universe doesn't need to shout. It begins to whisper gently, consistently, unmistakably. And you've likely started noticing these whispers already, not in grand gestures or dramatic signs, but in the quiet repetition of small, seemingly ordinary moments. Glancing at the clock and seeing the same numbers again and again, 11:11, 2:22. Hearing an old song at the exact moment a memory arises. Thinking of someone and receiving their message seconds later. These aren't coincidences, they're confirmations. They are the language of the field, speaking back to you in the only way it knows how. Frequency, pattern, alignment. You've grown sensitive to this language because your internal static has quieted. You're not as reactive. You're not searching for signs in desperation. You're simply noticing them because they're already aligned with your presence. And that's the key difference. You're no longer asking the universe to send signs. You're recognizing that you're already inside them. The field isn't trying to get your attention. It's responding to your stillness, your coherence. The more you settle into your rhythm, the more obvious these gentle confirmations become. They're not random. They're rhythmic. And rhythm, Scorpio, is your native language. These repeating patterns are not meant to provoke you into action. They're meant to anchor you in trust. The moment you stop looking for the big breakthrough is the moment you begin noticing all the subtle alignments that were already surrounding you. It's in the way your day flows more smoothly than expected. The way someone offers help without you asking. The way clarity lands when you least expect it. These moments, so easy to brush off, are the real evidence that the shift is already underway. You're not on the edge of alignment, you're inside it. And when that happens, the old impulse to figure things out begins to fade. You don't need to interpret every detail anymore. You just observe. You receive. You respond when it's time, not a second before. You become a listener rather than a controller. And in that listening, you begin to trust the intelligence of the field that's co-creating with you. Your role is no longer to push, it's to partner. Every repeated sign is a gentle nod from the universe, saying, yes, you're exactly where you need to be. Scorpio, the world has taught you to look for confirmation through outcomes, but your soul knows better. Your soul recognizes that presence itself is confirmation. You don't need to chase proof when the rhythm around you is already synchronizing with your breath. Those repeating numbers, those recurring moments, they're not signals to rush, they're signals to stay, to remain centered, to keep trusting your inner frequency. Because what's unfolding for you now isn't ahead of you, it's unfolding through you, in the quiet pattern of your own becoming. Scorpio, there was a time when you felt like everything was just out of reach, as if the life you were meant to live was always a few steps ahead of you, waiting, testing, teasing. You prepared, you healed, you learned the lessons, you waited for the signal to move, for the green light to act, for the door to finally open. But what if the shift wasn't about moving forward? What if it was about realizing that you're already inside the doorway, that the preparation is over and the moment you've been aligning with is no longer coming, it has arrived? There's something subtle but powerful happening now. You're no longer becoming aligned, you are aligned. It may not feel like a dramatic breakthrough, because this kind of transformation doesn't scream. It settles. It roots. And that's exactly why it lasts. All the inner work you've done, the quiet decisions, the sacrifices no one saw, the boundaries you enforced without explanation. They've built something that now surrounds you like a field. You don't need to force anything into place anymore. You've already become the place where it fits. This isn't about scripting the future or setting massive goals. This is about recognizing the infrastructure that's already grown beneath you. The abundance you seek doesn't need more effort. It needs recognition. It needs stillness. The universe doesn't respond to panic. It responds to presence. And Scorpio, your presence has become magnetic. It's not asking what's next anymore. It's standing inside what is with full awareness. You're not preparing for alignment. You're living it. And everything that needs to meet you will do so, not because you chased it, but because you stayed open long enough for it to arrive. You might feel this shift in the most ordinary moments, how your energy holds during conversations, how decisions come with ease, how there's less need to justify your intuition. These aren't signs of disengagement. They're signs of embodiment. When the body no longer braces and the mind no longer loops, that's not laziness, it's trust. It's readiness. It's arrival. You're no longer trying to get into position. You are the position. And wealth, true, sustainable, grounded, wealth responds to that level of clarity. Scorpio, you've crossed an invisible threshold. The part of you that used to wait for permission no longer needs it. The identity that needed constant signs now recognizes itself in silence. You're not outside of the process anymore. You are the process. What you've built in private is beginning to echo in public. But don't rush to label it or manage it. Just stay here, stay open, stay steady. You are not stepping into something new. You are finally seeing what you've been carrying all along. Let this truth sink in deeply. You're not preparing anymore. You've arrived. And from this place of quiet embodiment, the next chapter isn't something to chase. It's something that unfolds naturally, around the frequency you now hold with ease. Scorpio, perhaps the most powerful shift taking place in you right now isn't visible on the surface, but it's deeply felt within. Your emotional energy, once scattered by survival, shaped by reaction, or stretched thin by expectation, is finally settling. And in that settling, something extraordinary is happening. Your emotions are no longer pushing you to fix, chase, or defend. They're guiding you gently, like a compass returning to true north. This is emotional congruence. It's when your inner state matches your outer presence. And that kind of alignment doesn't just bring peace, it creates magnetism. You've lived seasons where your heart said one thing and your action said another, where you smiled while carrying heaviness, where you agreed when you wanted to walk away. But those patterns are falling away now, not because you forced them to, but because your frequency has outgrown them. Your nervous system is learning that it doesn't have to flinch before every decision. Your body is realizing that safety doesn't require performance, and your energy is no longer leaking into places that do not return your light. That is how emotional congruence begins, not with dramatic declarations, but with subtle boundaries that hold without needing to be explained. The more your emotional tone stabilizes, the clearer your field becomes. And when that happens, the right people, choices, and opportunities start finding you without confusion, without force. You don't have to scream what you need. You are the signal. The moment you feel the inner shift where your no means no, your yes feels clean, and your silence feels sovereign, you become magnetic. Not for chaos or tests, but for support, clarity, and wealth that doesn't require you to shrink. Scorpio, this isn't emotional shutdown, this is emotional mastery. It's the difference between reacting to survive and responding from truth. The emotional congruence you're building is what wealth responds to now. Because wealth doesn't just follow hard work, it follows coherence. And coherence comes from being one thing, inside and out. You're no longer fragmented. You're no longer split between desire and doubt. Your energy has shape now. Your boundaries are no longer walls. They're invitations for the right things to stay and the wrong things to pass by. This is why even silence feels potent now. Why pauses feel full instead of empty. You've stopped broadcasting desperation and started radiating trust. And that trust doesn't need to be earned. It simply needs to be honored. When you're emotional, landscape holds steady. Your choices don't just make sense, they make space. Space for wealth to land. Space for peace to grow. Space for the future to root itself in something stable. You've done the work. You've felt every storm. But now, you're no longer controlled by the waves. You've become the still water beneath. And in that stillness, Scorpio, you become a magnet. Not for noise, not for validation, but for everything that was always meant to find you the moment you aligned your inner truth with your outer presence. Scorpio, something profound is happening, and it's happening because of you. Not because of how hard you've pushed, not because you've asked for attention, but because your energy has become undeniable. Quietly, patiently, consistently, you've been sending out a frequency. Not one of desperation, but of alignment. And now, the field around you is responding. It may not come in grand announcements or sudden windfalls, but it's coming. Through small shifts. Through the way people speak to you with more respect. Through how old doors reopen with a new kind of timing. The field, the invisible matrix that connects all things, is adjusting to the vibration you've been faithfully holding. You didn't demand this change. You became it. Through the way you kept showing up with integrity. Through the stillness you refused to abandon. Through the inner clarity that never needed an audience. And now what once felt delayed is arriving. What once seemed distant is drawing near. You don't need to manifest in the traditional sense anymore. You are the manifestation. Your inner coherence is being mirrored in the structure of your outer world. You're no longer knocking on doors, they're opening on their own, because the energy behind them recognizes you. It sees the steady rhythm you carry, the unwavering presence you've cultivated, and it responds, not with testing, but with invitation. This is the power of resonance. You don't need to chase opportunities when your very presence becomes one. You don't have to beg for recognition when your field already speaks louder than words. You've stepped into a space where energy goes first and everything else follows. Your external world is finally catching up to your internal transformation. That business idea you've been quietly nurturing, it's ready. That conversation you've been delaying, the right words will come. That support you needed but never asked for, it's arriving without you having to justify your worth. Scorpio, the field doesn't need convincing. It responds to stability. It listens for tone. And you've stayed in the right tone long enough that the universe is harmonizing around it. This isn't magic. This is momentum built from months, maybe years, of inner consistency. Every time you trusted your intuition without evidence. Every time you chose rest over panic, alignment over urgency, you planted signals, and those signals are now blooming into form. Don't be surprised if things begin to organize around you with less resistance, if people return with new energy, if choices feel easier to make. It's not that life has become simpler, it's that you've become clearer, and that clarity creates gravity. You no longer need to prove yourself to be received. You're being received because you've proven to yourself that you're ready. And that readiness isn't loud. It's steady. It's strong. It's sovereign. The field has felt your presence, Scorpio. And now, it's responding with everything that matches your frequency. Scorpio, the world has often misunderstood your stillness as waiting, your silence as retreat, your discipline as detachment. But those who look closely know the truth. Your consistency has never been passive. It's been a sacred rhythm, a quiet, persistent devotion to what feels right, even when no one was watching. And now that rhythm is becoming the architecture of your abundance. Because wealth doesn't just flow to energy, it flows to structure. And your discipline, held over time with unwavering integrity, has become the very structure that abundance can build itself upon. There were days when it felt like nothing was moving, like you were repeating the same tasks, tending the same soil, with no visible growth. But what the surface didn't show was how deep the roots were growing beneath. Every time you returned to your work with care, every time you honored a routine without needing instant reward, you sent out a signal. I am ready to sustain what I receive. And that signal, the rhythm of responsibility, of grounded action, of follow-through, is what wealth trusts the most. Wealth doesn't just visit where there is inspiration. It stays where there is rhythm. The way you tend to the little things, the unopened email answered with presence, the document revised just once more, the corner of your home you cleared without needing praise. These are not meaningless acts. They are the fingerprints of your future. They are movements encoded with intention. And when you do them consistently, not out of fear but out of devotion, they become portals through which abundance can flow without interruption. Scorpio, your energy is no longer scattered. It's focused. It's refined. It's powerful. And that refinement? That's what makes you magnetic, not only to money, but to meaning. You're no longer trying to prove your worth through performance. You're embodying it through pattern. The smallest acts repeated with care now hold the weight of transformation. You're not trying to force big outcomes. You're anchoring the energy that allows those outcomes to find you. This is sacred discipline, not rigid control, but rhythm, with memory. A rhythm that remembers who you are and why you're here. A rhythm that isn't swayed by noise because it knows its own beat. Scorpio, wealth is drawn not to chaos but to containers. And you've become a container strong enough to hold what's next. You don't need to rush. You only need to keep your rhythm. Keep doing what's in front of you with full presence. Keep tending what you've been given with quiet reverence. That's how energy becomes form. That's how vision becomes reality. You've become the frequency that no longer needs to be loud to be heard. Your rhythm is speaking now. And everything that's meant to find you is listening. Scorpio, what's forming around you now isn't just opportunity, it's structure. Not the kind built in haste or driven by external pressure, but the kind that rises from within. Slowly, intentionally, quietly. This is the wealth you don't have to hold up with sheer effort. It holds you. It supports the rhythm you've created. Because you're not simply attracting abundance, you're building the environment where it knows how to stay. And that's the difference between momentary gain and lasting prosperity. One flares up and fades. The other takes root in rhythm and clarity in the architecture of your life. You may begin to notice how the smallest actions are carrying more weight. The way you arrange your space, the way you move through your routines, the way you prepare for even the most mundane task. It all holds a different tone now. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. And that presence is creating blueprints. Wealth isn't waiting for a grand vision or a perfect launch. It's responding to how consistently you've shown up for what already exists. It's responding to how deeply you care for what's already yours. That care, that attention, is construction. It's creating pathways that your next level can walk in on. Scorpio, you've entered the phase where wealth doesn't look like external noise. It looks like inner order. It looks like a calendar that feels peaceful. A conversation that feels aligned. A system that supports your energy instead of draining it. You've outgrown the model of chasing. You're moving into a model of magnetizing through grounded design. What surrounds you now is beginning to reflect what lives inside you. Clarity, simplicity, and depth. The structure of wealth you're building is emotional, energetic, and spiritual before it's material. That's why it's sustainable. When your outer world starts to match your inner knowing, that's not luck, it's alignment. And alignment creates momentum that doesn't crash. It flows. You're no longer relying on random opportunity. You're becoming the kind of person opportunity trusts. Because you've proven with every small, steady act that you won't drop what you've been given. That you'll nurture it, refine it, evolve it. And that kind of reliability is what abundance is drawn to, not just to visit, but to dwell. Scorpio, this is the new structure of wealth. A rhythm that matches your nervous system, systems that match your truth, relationships that mirror your self-worth. You don't need to complicate the path ahead. You only need to honor the one you've already created beneath your feet. Keep choosing the quiet order that feels like peace. Keep building the life that fits your soul, not the image others expect. Because what's forming now is not a performance, it's a pattern. And patterns, once stable, become portals. This is your new wealth template. One rooted in rhythm, built on presence, and destined to endure. You don't have to search for the next step, Scorpio. You are standing on it. And it's holding. Scorpio, the emotional waters you once swam in, chaotic, unpredictable, overwhelming, have started to settle. Not because the world outside of you has grown quieter, but because you have. There's a clarity rising now that doesn't need to be chased, and it's coming from the refinement of your inner landscape. You are no longer pulled in 1,000 directions by every feeling that passes through. You are no longer distracted by emotions that don't belong to you, or thrown off course by momentary triggers. This is the power of emotional refinement, and it's becoming your new superpower. There was a time when your emotions ran ahead of your decisions, leading you down paths you weren't ready for, or keeping you stuck in patterns you had outgrown. But now, there's a calm in you that holds, a center that no longer collapses under pressure. You're learning that feeling deeply doesn't have to mean reacting constantly. That stillness isn't emotional numbness, it's maturity. You can now let a wave of emotion pass through without it stealing your clarity. And that focus, that ability to stay centered even as energy moves through you, is priceless. It's what creates space for precision. It's what opens doors that frantic motion never could. You may notice how you pause more before responding, how your no is clean and doesn't require a long explanation, how you no longer stretch yourself to accommodate situations that drain your spirit. These aren't just behavioral changes. They are evidence of your emotional body aligning with your truth. The energy that used to scatter is now consolidating. The wounds that used to speak for you are now healing. You are no longer spreading yourself thin between what fills you and what merely distracts you. Your inner focus has become a compass, and it always points to peace. This refinement isn't about becoming rigid or cold. It's about becoming exact. You are learning the sacred discipline of conserving your energy for what truly matters. You no longer leak power through over-explaining, over-committing, or overcompensating. You are present where you choose to be, and absent where your energy is no longer honored. That clarity, Scorpio, sends a message far louder than any words ever could. And as your emotional landscape sharpens, so too does your direction. You don't need to search as frantically for signs. You are the sign. You don't need constant reassurance to know you're on the right path. Your nervous system is telling you. Your breath is confirming it. And your instincts, clean, focused, and finally unburdened, are guiding you forward without noise. Let this be your new truth. The deeper your emotional clarity, the more exact your life becomes. What's meant for you doesn't require emotional chaos. It recognizes your stillness and moves toward it. And from this space of inner refinement, every next step begins to appear clear, clean, and aligned with who you've always been becoming. Scorpio, you've spent so much of your life reaching for clarity, for connection, for confirmation that you were on the right path. But what's becoming clear now is that you don't need to reach anymore. Because everything that's meant for you isn't far away. It's already circling you. It's already resonating with your presence. And your presence, refined and unwavering, has become magnetic. Not in the way the world defines magnetism, loud, flashy, demanding attention, but in the quiet, undeniable way that only true power knows how to move. You don't have to convince anyone. You don't have to chase anything. You are the gravity now. When your energy is rooted in truth, it calls in what aligns without effort. That's what you're living now. Not manifestation based on striving, but attraction based on congruence. You're not casting wishes into the void. You're speaking from a place of deep agreement with yourself. The phrase, "I am ready to receive," doesn't come from hope anymore. It comes from memory, soul memory. The kind of knowing that comes from lifetimes of learning how to hold still in your own power. You've stopped searching outward because you've realized that what you were seeking was a match to your inner state. And now that your inner state is clear, what matches it has no choice but to respond. True magnetism begins when there is no inner conflict, when your thoughts, your words, and your actions are speaking the same language. And Scorpio, your language is no longer laced with hesitation. It's infused with clarity. That's why the world around you is shifting. That's why doors are opening that once felt shut. You're no longer trying to get into rooms where your energy doesn't belong. You're creating a field so coherent that the right doors open by design, not by force. This doesn't mean you never act. It means you act only when the energy is right. It means your movements are precise, your choices intentional, your time sacred. You move not to prove, but to anchor. You speak not to convince, but to transmit. And that kind of energy, Scorpio, is unforgettable. It lingers. It imprints. It shapes the reality around you without noise. So if you felt a calm lately that you can't explain, if you've stopped needing to be seen and yet are being noticed more, if your actions feel smaller but carry more weight, that's not a coincidence. That's your magnetism working. That's the field rearranging itself to fit you, not the other way around. And this field, this steady hum of resonance, doesn't rise from effort. It rises from alignment. You no longer need to become something new. You only need to continue being who you already are, fully, clearly, and without apology. You are the signal now. And wealth, support, peace, they're all listening. They're not waiting for your shout. They're responding to your stillness. Because your energy doesn't just attract, it remembers. And what remembers you will always find its way home. Scorpio, what you're building now can't be seen in its entirety just yet, but it's already holding you. This is no longer about individual moments of clarity or temporary bursts of progress. This is about architecture, quiet, sacred architecture forming beneath your everyday steps. Alignment isn't just a feeling anymore. It's a structure. It's the unseen design behind the way your days unfold, the way your body knows when to move and when to rest, the way your intuition clicks into place without needing validation. You've been laying this foundation for a long time, brick by brick, choice by choice. And now, the walls are beginning to rise. You don't need to build louder. You need to build truer. The alignment you hold now is not something you reach for. It's something you walk in. You make a small decision, and it echoes with clarity. You shift a space in your home, and the energy flows smoother. You speak a sentence, and it lands with depth. These are not random moments. They are design elements, pieces of a larger blueprint that is uniquely yours. You are the architect. And what you're constructing isn't just a lifestyle, it's a frequency. One that sustains abundance, one that supports peace, one that makes space for longevity instead of burnout. Scorpio, this is how the next chapter begins. Not through reinvention, but through reinforcement. You don't need to burn everything down to move forward. You need to reinforce what already works. Strengthen what already feels right. Return to the practices that bring you calm. Revisit the patterns that nourish you. The architecture of alignment is about maintenance, not constant disruption. You're building a life that doesn't just look good on the outside, it feels whole on the inside. And here's the secret. When your inner systems are clean, the outer systems start to organize around you. Money flows where there is clarity. Support arrives where there is structure. Opportunity lands where there is space. And you've been making that space not with noise or performance, but with quiet precision. The rituals you've kept. The boundaries you've upheld. The rest you've allowed. These are beams and columns in the house of your becoming. There will always be more to do, more to refine, more to expand. But right now, your only task is to honor what you've already built. You don't need to rush the roof when the foundation has just begun to breathe. Let the structure of your life become more intentional, more rooted in rhythm than in reaction. Let your days be guided not by urgency, but by alignment. Because this is how the field recognizes where to land, not through declarations, but through design. And the design of your life, Scorpio, is starting to speak. You are no longer searching for alignment. You're living it. And from this place, everything you need will know exactly where to find you, because the architecture is already in place. Scorpio, you've journeyed through the unseen corridors of alignment, discipline, clarity, and emotional refinement. And now, as this sacred message draws to a close, let it not be an ending, but a return to your center, a return to the rhythm you've always carried beneath the noise. Because you're not stepping into something new, you are stepping into yourself, fully, unapologetically, completely. You are not trying to become worthy, you're remembering that you always were. The field knows your name now. It recognizes the tone of your stillness, the depth of your devotion, the clarity of your path. You are no longer trying to prove your value, you are living it. Every breath you take in presence becomes an invitation for abundance. Every small act of care, every conscious decision, every pause made in trust, it all signals to the universe. I'm ready, not because I'm striving, but because I'm aligned. This isn't about chasing a version of success someone else defined. It's about holding space for the life that feels true, the life that reflects your values, your rhythm, your vision, and that life is not arriving one day, it's already here, unfolding quietly with each step you take in alignment. You don't need to predict every move. You just need to stay rooted in your tone. The tone that says, I am enough. The tone that whispers, I trust what I carry. Let the affirmation rise from within you, not as a wish, but as a truth you know in your bones. I'm already in the field of wealth. Say it gently. Say it boldly. Say it until the words stop, sounding like hope and begin feeling like recognition. Because they are. These aren't just affirmations. They are confirmations. You are no longer preparing for abundance, you are holding it. With your stillness, with your structure, with your emotional steadiness. And that energy? It cannot be ignored. It draws in support, alignment, resources, and opportunities without demand. Because that's what true magnetism does. Scorpio, keep returning to the rhythm you've opened. Keep honoring the simplicity that holds the deepest power. Let your decisions continue to rise not from fear, but from alignment. Let your actions echo not performance, but truth. You don't need to stretch beyond yourself to receive what's meant for you. You only need to be yourself, fully present, precise, peaceful. This is your frequency now. This is your new ground. And every time you choose to return here, the field listens. It remembers. It responds. So breathe deeply. Trust your timing. Move with intention. And if you ever forget who you are, come back to these words. I'm already in the field of wealth. Let that be your anchor. Let that be your guide. Let that be the quiet power you carry forward from this moment and for every moment still to come. And if any part of this message resonated, don't just think about it. Speak it, write it, claim it, drop a comment. I align with quiet expansion. Then let the rhythm continue. Quiet, grounded, magnetic. Because Scorpio, you're not chasing the shift. You are the shift.